House to Home, presented by RE/MAX Diamond Realty.
Day once again, and welcome back to House to Home, where we are staying socially distant and we have a perfect square of guests. There are four of us in the Zoom room here at KUAM today. We have Liz and Gina from RE/MAX Diamond Realty, and of course, Zenon Bellinger, who is a civil engineer and Zenon, should I say, a certified home inspector? Your specialty is basically assessing the quality and the state of a home such that it would be in proper order for a transaction. Would that be inaccurate?
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. That's fine.
Okay. Wow. I came up with that all off the top of my head. See, when I hang out with realtors for the past 6 years and everything, they teach me a thing or two. Okay. So ladies, I know you have had many conversations with Zen. I don't even want to get in the middle of this because you guys are completely in your own zone. So I wanted to hopefully bring the three of us together, the four of us, I should say, together, and maybe just talk about the inspection process. So Gina, this is something that you always have something to say about.
Well, you know, I've been curious because I was explaining to Zenon that when, you know, it's been like a million years ago that I got into real estate, at least I feel that way. But we used to only have licensed engineers. Some of them have different licenses, but basically Zenon is one of the individuals that is a licensed engineer who we were going to whenever buyer was concerned about getting a home inspected, whether it was an existing home or a brand new home. We would reach out to somebody like Zenon and say, hey, could you inspect this home? But in these modern times, we're finding that there are home inspectors out there who are in the business of doing home inspections, and we're not familiar with the training or the requirement. You know, what does an individual need to do in order to call themselves a home inspector and to operate their business that way? And that's, you know, I was kind of asking Zenon earlier, you know, what are the requirements? I know you're an engineer and you offer home inspections, but these other people that are out there, and we are utilizing their business as well, how do they go about becoming a certified home inspector, and what kind of background do they need? Do you know?
Generally, inspectors will go, you know, come under the tutelage of either construction people or engineering people, and then they learn their trades from there. Sometimes I'll run into super inspectors, like I call them, that have no engineering background out in the field, and we're building something, and they seem to know a lot of everything. And I look at them and I go, I don't know, man. I mean, I'm a civil engineer. I limit myself to civil engineering stuff, plumbing, structural. On occasion, I'll look at the electrical issues myself, and then the drainage issues. So it's difficult sometimes to come up with, you know, what do you call it? An inspector that knows it all. So I have looked on the internet, and I've looked at, you know, different types of inspection reports and stuff like that. We generally do the stuff that HUD has, Housing and Urban Development, and then we monitor the things that they're looking at, because most of our stuff, the inspections that we do, go through the Housing and Urban Development, through the banks and stuff. So
I'm assuming though, Zenon, when you do your inspections, you're looking at government regulatory issues, as well as structural, sometimes, you know, depending on the issues with the home. I mean, some of the inspections we've seen are like 80 pages long. Mm-hmm. And some of those reports sometimes are opinions versus something regulatory, a regulatory issue. So when you do your inspections, what do you focus on?
Well, initially when we come on the property, I'll look at the general lay of the land to ensure that there's no environmental issues, primarily drainage, because sometimes drainage issues can mess up that you can have erosion, you can have foundation issues and stuff like that. So from the exterior, I look at it from that. I'll also look at, you know, how close are the trees? I mean, if they're too close and you get a lot of leaves on the roof, it's going to mess up your roof drainage and stuff like that. If there's no leaves on the roof and the people do a good job of trimming, I don't even bring that up, because, you know, that's a maintenance issue. Then I look at the walls and ensure that there's no structural cracks and stuff like that. You know, I go around the house. I look at the windows. Sometimes when we put shutters up, the corners of the windows crack, and we may have to repair them with epoxy. And then once we're all done outside and on the roof, I look at the roof to see if the sealant is fine. If there's no sealant, and sometimes people don't put sealants, then it's a matter of cleaning. And I tell them, you know, if you clean this, your power bills are going to go down. If you put a coat of white paint on it, it'll even go down more. But that's something that you can do on your own, or it's not a requirement. Okay. So then I'll go in and I'll look at the interior of the house, and I'll look at around the windows, the doors, and the walls and the ceiling to ensure that there's no cracks. Also the floor. Make sure there's no settlement issues, and also the make sure that the walls are fine. Once that's done, then I go and look around at all the plumbing fixtures and the plumbing. Sometimes I'll see some that are what do you call it? They're not in the walls and they're surface mounted. So then we try to determine, are they properly mounted? Then we'll look at that, and then we'll look at the voltages on the electrical side. Make sure that all the boxes are okay. Make sure that all the water heaters and the air conditioners have disconnect switches, so that when the requirement is when you're working on these things, you've got to turn it off, not at the main box, but right next to it, so that there's no issues. Because most of the time when you're working on an air conditioner or working on the water heater, the rest of the house is on. That's why the disconnect switch is there. We'll look at the GFCIs, or the ground fault circuit. And these are, you know, within 6 feet of wherever there's water. And that's so that you don't get electrical shock and stuff like that. So we'll look at that in the shower areas, the bathrooms, the sinks and stuff like that. And a lot of times people forget that underneath the sink, there's a garbage disposal. And when you have the garbage disposal, that outlet has to be a GFCI. So those are primarily the things that we look at. And we get up on the roof, we'll look at how's the power being fed into the house? Are the wires on top of the roof? If it is, then we got a problem. We got to lift them up so that there's no water on the roof that can touch the power wires. So there's a lot of different things that we look at. Now we only list the things that are problem areas. And you know, when we do our inspection, normally the inspection lasts anywhere between 30 minutes to an hour, depending on how big the project, how big the house is and stuff. And in that 30 minutes to an hour, we try to do our due diligence to catch everything that we can see. I also ask the buyer, you've been here several times looking at this house. Is there anything that you think that I should know based on your observation? And I'll let you know if that's a proper observation, or maybe it's just aesthetics.
Now, I've got a question, and ladies, I'd like your opinion on this, because from the Guam Association of Realtors standpoint, I mean, Zenon, obviously from his responses, which were fascinating, you know, he's got a firm handle on the mechanical, the structural, and the technical aspects of a home. And, you know, he said he is a professional engineer, so his word and his opinion and ultimately his signature on an inspection and assessment carries a lot of weight. What does the Guam Association of Realtors mandate as far as like licensure for people that, because you were saying, you know, not everybody is a certified professional engineer, or they're like someone who has literally passed the test to be able to give their opinion on something. Like, well, what are the qualifications if someone wants to do this kind of work?
Actually, under the Guam Association of Realtors, it's not under the Guam Association purview. It would actually be under the licensing board, because they would have to go and apply for a business license, as well as show whatever documentation they had, but it does not fall under the Guam Association of Realtors.
So I wouldn't have to go through 7 years of engineering school if I wanted to. I mean, obviously I would need to go through training, and I'd have to have like a lot of instruction, but I wouldn't necessarily have to go off and become a certified engineer to do this kind of work.
Well, that's what we're noticing now, is that we do have home inspectors. So they're, you know, their line of business is they are home inspectors, and no, they're not licensed engineers. And so that's where the question came up is, you know, and you were asking about the Guam Association of Realtors. that board oversees realtors only. And
Okay.
that, you know, our field of expertise is in the business of real estate. We're not home inspectors. We can walk through a home and we can say to a buyer, the water leaks on this roof concerns me. You should get a professional to look at it. These termite tracks on the wall concerns us. You need to get a professional to look at it. That's where our expertise ends. We can tell them what concerns us based upon our experience in the real estate business. We've seen these things occur before. And so we'll tell the buyer, you know, you should be concerned about these things. You need to get a professional to address these issues, but we're not the professional.
Okay, well, let's go to the professional, and Zenon, as our featured guest for today, we'll give you the final word as we're running a little bit out of time. What should a potential buyer look for if they want an expert, qualified opinion about the state of a property?
Well, like I mentioned before, I mean, there's a lot of parameters here, but you look at, I mean, if you're looking at who you should hire as an inspector, then you would look at a professional engineer or someone with at least credentials of that nature. But there are also inspectors that do this type of work. We've found that sometimes the appraiser comes up with some good ideas on, you know, he'll see something before we even get there. The appraisal is done, and the appraiser will list out all the deficiencies that he's seen. And on occasion we agree with him, and on occasion we go, no, that's a superficial crack. You know, it's not a major issue. Or he'll say, well, there's a leak, and I'll go, well, the leak is right at the joint. It's not a plumbing piping issue. It's more of just a valve issue and things of that nature. So between the appraisers and the inspectors and the realtors, we all over the years have come up with all the different things that we've seen. And from time to time, because, you know, a lot of these inspections are quick. And so we rely on each other to because they've seen the property 2 or 3 times. I'm only there for that one particular visit.
I'll tell you what, just take my money, please. You're obviously a outstanding expert in the field that you do, but I would love to actually continue to talk about this. I got to go sanitize my hands because we are all staying socially distant and we are doing the right thing. So, ladies, I really appreciate it. And Zenon, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Another fantastic topic. We'll see all you guys next week.
We can do this again. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you, Zenon.
You're welcome.
House to Home, presented by RE/MAX Diamond Realty.